This time, there's a story about a group of friends who went through the most terrifying night of their lives. Nathan, Emma, Clara, Jack, and Mia, 5 friends seeking adventure, decided to go camping in the depths of Redwood Forest, a place infamous for its eerie legends. Redwood Forest, with its towering ancient trees and shadows that seem to dance among the leaves, has long been known as a place where the boundary between the real world and the supernatural begins to blur. A thick mist often blankets the ground. Strange whispers echo from deep within the woods, and the locals, they avoid it after sunset because they believe something unseen is always watching and waiting for those foolish enough to step in uninvited. Nathan, always obsessed with the supernatural, saw this trip as a golden opportunity. Since childhood, he had been captivated by horror stories and tales of the unknown. But his fascination wasn't just a hobby. There was something else, something from his past that made him crave answers, something that led him here. And when he learned about a forbidden area deep within the forest, he felt an undeniable pull, a force he couldn't explain. Emma, the wise and level-headed leader of the group, felt uneasy about Nathan's decision. But she didn't want to ruin their time together. She knew how stubborn Nathan could be, and convinced herself that this was just another adventure. Clara, easily frightened, masked her anxiety with jokes, while Jack remained calm, keeping everything under control. Mia, with her camera in hand, was too busy capturing every moment to notice that her lens would soon reveal something far beyond her friends. That night, the fog grew thicker, and the air around them felt colder than it should have been. Leaves rustled without any wind, as if something was moving among the trees. Mia slowly lowered her camera, her eyes scanning the darkness. A creeping sensation washed over her. She wasn't alone. Something was watching. Before beginning their hike, they stopped by a small roadside shop at the edge of the village. The owner, an old man with worry in his eyes, warned them, his voice trembling. "Don't go there, kid. Many have tried, but not all have returned safely." But they only exchanged glances and chuckled softly. To them, it was just another old tale, passed down to scare outsiders. Nathan, consumed by his relentless curiosity, became even more convinced that something was waiting for him deep inside. Emma, though hesitant, refused to appear cowardly. Clara tried to push down her unease. Jack remained firm in his role, to keep everyone safe. And Mia? She was too busy capturing the moment, unaware of what her lens might eventually reveal. The locals often spoke of a figure known as the Hollow, a shadowy entity said to lurk in the depths of the forest, watching those who dared venture too far. Some hikers claim to have seen formless shadows, heard whispers in the dead of night, or even felt invisible hands brushing against them. And now, these 5 friends had just crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed. They arrived at the forest just as the sun began to dip toward the west, casting golden rays that slipped through the towering trees. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly stirred leaves. From a distance, birds chirped in harmony, a gentle symphony of nature, as if welcoming them into the unknown. Nathan led the way, his steps steady and confident, guiding the group along a path rarely traveled by tourists. This trail felt different, quieter, stranger, a little more treacherous than the main route. Now and then, small branches snapped beneath their feet. Overhead, the leaves swayed gently, casting eerie, shifting shadows that danced across the forest floor. Clara stepped cautiously, her eyes darting toward the trees that grew denser around them. There was something about this place, something that made her uneasy, as if this forest wasn't just an ordinary forest. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to shake off the creeping sense of dread. "Nathan, are you sure this is a good idea?" Her voice was soft but clear, as if hoping the question might reassure her own doubts. Nathan glanced back at her briefly, offering a faint smile, completely unfazed. "Relax. It's just an old story meant to scare outsiders," he said with a shrug. "Besides, we're just camping. What's the worst that could happen?" Emma, walking beside Clara, let out a long sigh. She didn't fully believe Nathan's words, but she also didn't want to start an argument. With a hesitant shake of her head, she chose to stay silent. Meanwhile, Jack and Mia were busy scouting for a good spot to set up their tent. They settled near a massive tree, one that stood firm, as if it had been there for centuries. Its bark was rough, etched with deep grooves that resembled bulging veins, giving the eerie impression that it had silently witnessed far too much within this forest. As Jack worked on pitching the tent, Mia lifted her camera, capturing shots of their surroundings. She loved how the golden hues of the evening sun filtered through the trees, creating delicate beams of light that draped gracefully across the forest floor. Her lens lingered on the ancient tree. For some reason, she couldn't look away. It felt like the very center of this place, like something unseen was pulling her gaze back to it, again and again. As their preparations came to an end, night had fully settled in. The air grew colder, creeping beneath their skin like an unseen whisper. They gathered around the campfire, its golden flames flickering and casting warm light against the suffocating darkness. Shadows danced across their faces, while the scent of burning wood mixed with the sweet aroma of melting marshmallows. Laughter filled the air as they took turns sharing funny memories, embarrassing school moments, disastrous love stories. For a while, everything felt light, familiar, as if this night belonged only to them, untouched by the outside world. Mia kept capturing every moment with her camera, freezing their laughter and joy into photographs. But what none of them realized was that something else had been captured too. In one of Mia's photos, hidden within the darkened trees that loomed around them, a tall, shadowy figure stood still, watching from a distance. The next morning, dawn had barely broken when Nathan woke up, earlier than the others. The morning air in the forest was colder than usual, biting at his skin, even as the first rays of sunlight peeked through the gaps between the towering trees. The crisp air should have been calming, but something about this morning felt off. Silent. Too silent. Without waking the others, Nathan decided to take a short walk around the campsite. His footsteps were light, but somehow the snap of a small twig beneath his boot echoed far too loudly in the unnatural quiet. He followed the same narrow trail they had taken the day before, the golden morning light filtering through the giant trees in delicate streaks. But then, something strange caught his eye. On one of the towering, ancient trees, there was a strange symbol, carved deep into the bark. A large circle, intersected by jagged lines that crisscrossed in the center, forming a pattern Nathan didn't recognize. A strange sensation rippled through his body as he stared at it. Like the symbol wasn't just A simple marking. Curious, he pulled out his phone and snapped a few photos. When he returned to the campsite, he showed his discovery to Emma and Jack. Emma frowned as she studied the image. She wasn't the type to believe in superstitions. But this symbol, it was too precise, too deliberate, as if it held a meaning far deeper than they could understand. Though slightly unsettled, they chose not to dwell on it. But Nathan, ever the skeptic, only saw it as a joke. He grabbed a fallen branch and began tracing the symbol into the dirt, chuckling as he admired his handiwork. That afternoon, they decided to venture deeper into the forest. Mia, as always, had her camera in hand, snapping photos from every angle. Jack took the lead, his steps steady, cautious. At first, everything seemed normal, but the further they walked, the more wrong it felt. The once lively forest, filled with chirping birds and rustling creatures, had fallen into an unnatural silence. No birds, no insects, not even the whisper of the wind. Each step felt heavier, as if someone was watching them from beyond the trees. At certain points along the path, they found fallen trees, collapsed in unnatural positions, not cut, not blown over by the wind, but as if something had torn them apart from the inside. Shattered wood lay scattered across the ground, leaving gaping holes in their trunks. As Mia moved in for a closer shot, a stench began to rise. Faint at first, but the deeper they went, the stronger it became. A putrid, rotting smell, like something long dead. Clara's unease grew. Her fingers dug into Emma's arm, her breath turning shallow, uneven. This forest wasn't just silent, it was alive, watching them with unseen eyes. Emma felt it too. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. But, of course, Nathan refused. To him, this was an opportunity, a story to tell. Yet tension had settled into the group, thick and unspoken. Finally, they agreed to return to camp before darkness set in. But when they arrived, something had changed. The trees, they were different, darker, taller, as if they had stepped into another place entirely. Shadows between the trunks grew thicker, shifting, moving, yet there was no wind. Clara shivered, not from the cold, but from the feeling that something unseen was pressing against her chest. Watching, waiting. That night, they huddled closer around the fire, trying to warm themselves, trying to shake off the tension hanging in the air, but none of them could truly relax. Mia had stopped taking pictures. Jack kept glancing around as if waiting for something. And then, it came. A soft tapping, faint, subtle, almost too quiet to notice, but just loud enough to make Clara jump. The sound came from outside the tent, like someone or something knocking in a slow, deliberate rhythm. No one moved, no one spoke, only silence, holding their breath, waiting for it to come again. Nathan, with whatever courage he had left, grabbed the flashlight in one swift motion. The beam cut through the darkness. Nothing, just emptiness. But then, as he lowered the light to the ground, his eyes went wide. There, on the damp earth still glistening with the night's dew, lay a massive footprint. Not human, not animal, something else. Its shape was strange, long, unnaturally deep, as if whatever left it was impossibly heavy. Nathan swallowed hard. For the first time since this trip began, he wasn't so sure anymore. Emma stood beside him, her face rigid. "We're leaving tomorrow morning," she whispered, her voice firm, unwavering. "This is getting weird." But Nathan, as always, tried to reason with them. Maybe it's just a coincidence. His words lacked conviction, as if he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. They retreated into the tent. No one truly slept that night. Outside, in the thickening darkness of the forest, something was still watching. And they had just crossed a line they were never meant to cross. Morning arrived, but the sunlight failed to bring its usual relief. A thick fog clung to the trees, swallowing the forest in an eerie silence. The air was cold, biting, and the sounds of nature remained absent, as if something had drained the life from this place. With heavy breaths, they began packing their things. Last night had been too terrifying to ignore, but Nathan, though quieter than usual, remained fixated on the massive footprint they had found. There was something about it, something that pulled at him, something he couldn't explain. "I just want to see where it leads," he said at last. Emma turned to him, her eyes dark with exhaustion, and barely contained fury. "Nathan, we need to get out of here, now!" But Nathan had already stepped forward, his feet following the trail deeper into the forest. With heavy hearts, Emma and the others had no choice but to follow. They walked in silence, their only company the sound of their own strained breathing. The deeper they went, the thicker the stench in the air became. Rotten, suffocating. Even the sunlight above seemed to dim, unwilling to touch this place. And then, they found it. Behind the thick underbrush, a small cave lay hidden, its entrance dark and foreboding. The surrounding rocks were covered in slick, black moss, damp and strangely sticky. The air here was colder, unnaturally cold. They stepped closer, each movement careful, hesitant. Mia lifted her camera, but her hands trembled for no reason. "We shouldn't be here," Clara whispered. The cave walls were covered in carvings, the same eerie symbols Nathan had found on the tree. Only this time, there were more of them, covering every inch of stone, as if someone, or something, had etched them over and over again. The stench thickened, sharp and metallic. Mia gagged, pressing a hand to her mouth. "What is this place?" Nathan, of course, stepped closer. He reached out, running his fingers along one of the carvings, and in that instant, a deafening rumble. The cave walls trembled violently. The air grew thick, suffocating, as if something inside had awakened. A deep, grinding noise echoed from within, followed by whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs that slithered through the darkness. Mia tried to snap a photo, but her camera flickered, then died. Jack grabbed Nathan's arm and yanked him back. "We're leaving, now!" They ran. They didn't care where, only that they got as far away from that cave as possible. Branches whipped against their faces, feet stumbling over roots and uneven ground. Their breath came in ragged gasps, hearts pounding like war drums. But when they reached the campsite, something was wrong, terribly wrong. Their belongings were no longer as they had left them. Bags lay open, clothes scattered across the dirt, utensils overturned, supplies missing. But the worst of it, the thing that sent ice through their veins, was what lay in the center of their camp, etched deep into the earth, carved with claw marks too large, too precise for any human hand, was the same symbol from the cave, perfectly drawn. Their eyes widened in horror. The forest was alive. Branches moved, twisting, reaching, curling like hands desperate to grasp. The wind howled, but not like before. It carried whispers, faint and chilling, voices without bodies. The sun dipped lower, dragging them into a darkness far worse than the night before. They were not alone. As night fell, the sounds began. A knock, software, rhythmic. One tree, then another. Moving, encircling. Whispers slithered through the air, directionless, everywhere at once. Clara started to cry. Emma gripped her hand tightly, trying to soothe her, though she herself was barely holding on. Jack stood rigid, clutching a small pocket knife, useless against whatever was out there. Then Clara heard it, breathing. Soft, measured. Right behind her. She turned, slowly, and the moment her eyes met the darkness, her body locked in place. Between the trees, a towering figure loomed, easily over 2 meters tall. Its body was thin, but its chest was hollow, a gaping cavity like rotting, decayed wood. Its skin was rough and dark, a grotesque blend of moss and earth. No face, no eyes. And yet, Clara knew. It was looking at her. The air grew dense, suffocating. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heartbeat pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. The creature didn't move, yet its presence alone made Clara's knees tremble. Then, it stepped forward. One step. The ground quivered beneath its weight. 2 steps. A massive shadow shifted between the trees. Clara stumbled backward, her entire body trembling violently. "Nathan, this is your fault!" Emma's voice cracked with panic. "We need to get out of here now!" But before they could move, the figure started to advance, faster this time. Its movement was unnatural, as if its feet never touched the ground, gliding effortlessly through the air. A sickening, crackling sound echoed with every step, like bones breaking and snapping back into place. Nathan tried to speak, maybe to calm them down, but no one was listening anymore. They all knew there was only one thing left to do. Run. Without a second thought, they sprinted into the darkness, crashing through the tangled forest. They didn't know where they were going. They only knew one thing: they could not stop. Behind them, heavy footsteps thundered closer, and the whispers grew louder. They had awakened it, and now it wanted them all. They had no idea how they ended up back at the campsite. Last night, they ran without direction, tearing through the forest, fear clawing at their throats. But now, they were here again. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing to show the path they had taken, as if the forest had erased their existence. And then, they saw it. Carved into the bark of a tree, words they had never seen before. The letters were rough, scraped deep into the wood, as if by something that did not have human hands. Just one sentence. "You are too late." Their chests tightened. The forest was different now, darker, heavier. The once crisp air reeked of decay, mingling with damp earth and something rotten. The sky remained a dull gray, though the sun should have been high by now, and the silence, suffocating. No birds, no rustling leaves, nothing. Then, the ground beneath them trembled, a faint vibration at first, growing into a deep, ominous rumble. Something was moving beneath the surface, and then the earth split open, a jagged, gaping chasm, swallowing everything in its path. Their tent, their belongings, gone, swallowed whole in an instant. They tried to run, but everything around them had changed. The trees no longer stood tall and firm. Their trunks twisted, their branches stretched downward, like hands reaching, grasping, waiting to ensnare them. Thick roots slithered across the ground, pulsing, as if they were alive. They turned back, but the path they had taken was gone. The forest had become a labyrinth. No way out, no clear direction. Every path looked the same. Narrow corridors formed by looming trees, leading into the unknown. No markers, no escape. Then, the whispers began. Not one voice, many, merging into a chilling murmur, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. But not from something living. The voices spoke inside their heads.
You are not the first. You will not leave. Only one may go.
They kept walking, hoping to find a way out. But the farther they went, the stranger everything became. Corpses began to appear along the path, some hanging from trees, charred black as if burned alive. Others sprawled on the ground, faces erased, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Every step felt heavier, as if something was pulling them down. The stench thickened, rot and dried blood suffocating the air. Then, without warning, one of them vanished. No sound, no struggle, just a blink, and one of them was gone. No footprints, no trace of where they went. Fear twisted into despair. They tried to run, but the forest wouldn't let them leave. Every turn brought them back to the same place, as if they were trapped in an endless loop. From the depths of the darkness, heavy footsteps echoed. That towering creature, it was back. But this time, it wasn't alone. They had lost all sense of time. The forest felt tighter, as if it was closing in, trapping them in an endless labyrinth. Their breaths were ragged, bodies covered in cuts, legs ready to collapse. Yet they kept running. That thing was still behind them, never fully seen but always there, like a shadow lurking between the trees, waiting for them to break. They couldn't last much longer. But then, the sounds stopped. The forest fell silent, too silent. No rustling leaves, no footsteps creeping behind them, nothing. Just the five of them standing there gasping for breath, on cold, dead ground. In front of them, the fog slowly lifted, revealing a narrow path. A familiar one, the path that should lead them out. They didn't think twice. Without speaking, without looking back, they moved, fast. Every step felt heavy, as if something was still trying to pull them back. But then, the trees began to thin. Sunlight seeped through the gaps. In the distance, they heard the faint murmur of a stream. They had made it out. The forest still loomed behind them, towering and vast. But now, its boundary was clear. They had crossed an invisible line. No one spoke on the way home. Their faces were pale, their eyes empty, minds trapped in the nightmare they had just escaped. Because even though their bodies had left, a part of them was still in that forest. Weeks passed, but the shadows of that night never truly faded. They tried to live as if nothing had changed, but deep down, they knew something was different. Mia never touched her camera again. Nathan stopped talking about adventures. Clara still woke up in the middle of the night, trembling. Emma avoided dark places. Jack became quieter than ever. They never went back to that forest, never tried to understand what really happened. But sometimes, in the dead of night, they could still feel it. Watching, not threatening, not attacking, just making sure they never forget.